Welcome to Warriors for Christ. Biblical, bold, speaking the truth while being uncompromising. The world is in a very dark place. Our job is to wake up the church and to fight back against the wickedness in the world. Our ministry believes in being effective versus relevant. We want to see lives changed and souls saved. Success is not measured in material wealth or possessions. Get ready for the truth. From America's leading street ministry, this is Warriors for Christ. And here's your host, Rich Pinkowski.
All right. Well, you guys, we know that I don't usually do videos on Monday night. However, this one is important enough to go ahead and do. I don't know if you guys are into, if you watch the news regularly or if you see what's going on in the world, but a leaked document came out that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. Supreme Court, Politico is reporting that Supreme Court has voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, draft opinion shows. We hold that Roe and Casey, and for those of you who don't know what Casey is the case that came after Roe, which is a woman can get an abortion for her mental health. That's also being overruled. Justice Alito writes in an initial majority draft circulated inside the court. So I want to read to you this. And this is something we need to praise God for. And I just want to say this to all the anti-Trumpers out there. If you had your way, this wouldn't be happening right now. Because Trump put those 3 judges on that court that voted to overturn this. If you had your way, it wouldn't have happened. But praise God, it's done. It goes back to the states now. Now it's time for you to go to your states and start electing people that will make it illegal in your states. In Oklahoma here, it will be a felony to have an abortion with 10 years in prison. 13 states have trigger laws that will automatically go into effect, but let's read the article. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito inside the court and obtained by Politico. Now, I assume that this was shared by one of the liberal justices' clerks because, after all, they want chaos in the streets to try to get them to change their mind. But anyway, the article goes on. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes in the document, labeled as the opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Deliberations on controversial cases have in the past been fluid. Justices can and sometimes do charge their votes as draft opinions circulate, and major decisions can be subject to multiple drafts and vote trading, sometimes until just days before a decision is unveiled. The court's holding will not be final until it is published, likely in the next 2 months. The immediate impact of the ruling as drafted in February would be to end a half-century guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion and allow each state to decide whether to restrict or ban abortion. It's unclear if there have been any subsequent changes to the draft. No draft decision in modern history of the court has been disclosed publicly while the case was still pending. This is the first time ever. The unprecedented revelation is bound to intensify the debate over what was already the most controversial case on the docket this term. The draft opinion offers an extraordinary window into the justices' deliberations in one of the most consequential cases before the court in the last 5 decades. Some court watchers predicted that the conservative majority would slice away at abortion rights without flatly overturning a 49-year-old precedent. The draft shows that the court is looking to reject Roe's logic and legal protections. I gotta check my feed. But so I'm going to continue reading it. But I think again, this is good news, and we should all be praising God for this. And by the way, this is the work of Christians. This is the work of prayer, of going out and rebuking these people. This is not just a small thing, you guys. This is a big deal. Absolutely a big deal. This is what we want, right? This is what we've been praying for. But anyway, let's go back to this article. The draft opinion. Okay, so the draft shows the court is looking to reject. A person familiar with the court's deliberations said that four of the other Republican-appointed justices, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, had voted with Alito in the conference held among the justices after hearing oral arguments in December, and that lineup remains unchanged as of this week. The three Democratic-appointed justices, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, are working on one or more dissents, according to the person. How Chief Justice Roberts will ultimately vote and whether he will join an already written opinion or draft his own is unclear. So we have Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Alito. It's done. How Chief Justice Roberts will vote is unclear. The document labeled as a draft, as a first draft of the majority opinion, includes a notation that was circulated among the justices on February 10th. If the Alito draft is adopted, it would rule in favor of Mississippi in the closely watched case over that state's attempt to ban most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. A Supreme Court spokesperson declined to comment or make another representative of the court available to answer questions about the draft document. It says here, Politico received a copy of the draft from a person familiar with the court's proceedings in the Mississippi case, along with other details supporting the authenticity of the document. The draft opinion runs 98 pages, including a 31-page appendix of historical state abortion law. The document is replete with citations to previous court decisions, books, and other authorities, and includes 118 footnotes. The appearance and timing of this draft are consistent with court practice. The disclosure of Alito's draft majority opinion, a rare breach of Supreme Court secrecy and tradition around deliberations, comes as all sides in the abortion debate are girding for the ruling. Speculation about the looming decision has been intense since the December oral arguments indicated a majority was inclined to support the Mississippi law. Under long-standing court procedures, justices hold preliminary votes on cases shortly after argument and assign a member of the majority to write a draft of the court's opinion. The draft is often amended in consultation with other justices, and in some cases, the justices change their votes altogether, creating the possibility that the current alignment on Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization could change. The Chief Justice typically assigns majority opinions when he is in the majority. When he is not, that decision is typically made by the most senior justice in the majority. A George Bush appointee who joined the court in 2006, Alito argues that the 1973 abortion rights ruling was ill-conceived and deeply flawed decision that invented a right mentioned nowhere in the Constitution and unwisely sought to wrench the contentious issue away from the political branches of government. Alito's draft ruling would overturn a decision by the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that found the Mississippi law ran afoul of Supreme Court precedent by seeking to effectively ban abortions before viability. Roe's survey of history ranged from the constitutionally irrelevant to the plainly incorrect, Alito continues, adding that its reasoning was exceptionally weak and that the original decision has had damaging consequences. The inescapable conclusion is that a right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition, Alito writes. Alito approvingly quotes a broad range of critics of the Roe decision. He also points to the liberal icons, such as the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe, who at certain points in their career took issue with the reasoning in Roe or its impact on the political process. Alito's skewering of Roe and the endorsement of at least 4 other justices for that unsparing critique is also a measure of the court's rightward turn in recent decades. Roe was decided 7-2 in 1973, with 5 Republican appointees joining 2 justices nominated by Democratic presidents. The overturning of Roe would almost immediately lead to stricter limits on abortion access in large swaths of the South and Midwest, with about half of the states set to immediately impose broad abortion bans. Any state could still legally allow the procedure. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion, the draft concludes. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. We now overrule those decisions and return the authority to the people and their elected representatives. The draft contains the type of caustic rhetorical flourishes Alito is known for, and that has caused Roberts, his fellow Bush appointee, some discomfort in the past. At times, Alito's draft opinion takes an almost mocking tone as it skewers the majority opinion in Roe, written by Justice Harry Blackmun, a Richard Nixon appointee who died in 1999. Roe expressed the feeling that the 14th Amendment was the provision that did the work, but its message seemed to be that the abortion right could be found somewhere in the Constitution, and that specifying its exact location was not of paramount importance, Alito writes. Alito declares that one of the central tenets of Roe, the viability distinction between fetuses not capable of living outside the womb and those which can, makes no sense. In several passages, he describes doctors and nurses who terminate pregnancies as abortionists. When Roberts voted with liberal justices in 2020 to block a Louisiana law imposing heavier regulations on abortion clinics, his sole concurrence used the more neutral term abortion providers. In contrast, Justice Clarence Thomas used the word abortionist 25 times in a solo dissent in the same case. Alito's use of the phrase egregiously wrong to describe Roe echoes language Mississippi Solicitor General Scott Stewart used in December in defending his state's ban on abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The phrase is also contained in an opinion Kavanaugh wrote as part of a 2020 ruling that jury convictions in criminal cases must be unanimous. In that opinion, Kavanaugh labeled two well-known Supreme Court decisions egregiously wrong when decided. The 1944 ruling upholding the detention of Japanese Americans during World War II, Korematsu versus United States, and the 1896 decision that blessed racial segregation under the rubric of separate but equal, Plessy versus Ferguson. The High Court has never formally overturned Korematsu, but did repudiate the decision in a 2018 ruling by Roberts that upheld then President Donald Trump's travel ban policy. Plessy remained the law of the land for nearly 6 decades until the court overturned it with the Brown versus Board of Ed school desegregation ruling in 1954. Quoting Kavanaugh, Alito writes of Plessy, "It was egregiously wrong on the day it was decided." Alito's draft opinion includes in small type a list of about 2 pages worth of decisions in which the justices overruled prior precedents, in many instances reaching results praised by liberals. The implication that allowing states to outlaw abortion is on par with ending legal segregation has been hotly disputed. But the comparison underscores the conservative justices' beliefs that Roe is so flawed that the justices should disregard their usual hesitations about overturning precedent and wholeheartedly renounce it. Alito's draft opinion ventures even further into this racially sensitive territory by observing in a footnote that some earlier proponents of abortion rights also had unsavory views in favor of eugenics. Some such supporters have been motivated by a desire to suppress the size of the African American population, Alito writes. It is beyond dispute that Roe has had the demographic effect. A highly disproportionate percentage of aborted fetuses are black. Alito writes that by raising the point, he is not casting aspersions on anyone. For our part, we do not question the motives of either those who have supported or those who have opposed laws restricting abortion rights. Alito also addresses concerns about the impact the decision can have on public discourse. We cannot allow our decisions to be affected by any extraneous influences, such as concern about the public's reaction to our work, Alito writes. We do not pretend to know how our political system or society will respond to today's decision overruling Roe and Casey. And even if we could foresee what will happen, we would have no authority to let that knowledge influence our decision. In the main opinion of the 1992 Casey decision, Justices Sandra Day O'Connor, Anthony Kennedy, and Davis Souter warned that the court would pay a terrible price for overruling Roe, despite criticism of the decision from some in the public and the legal community. Gee, I wonder who's going to cause the problem. Who's going to cause the problem? I wonder who. It's going to be the people that want to murder their children that are going to cause the problem. And they're going to fight, and they're going to burn, loot, and murder. Because after all, the idea of not murdering people, it confounds them. But anyway, While it has endangered disapproval, it has not been unworkable. The three justices wrote then, an entire generation has come of age, free to assume Roe's concept of liberty in defining the capacity of women to act in society and to make reproductive decisions. No erosion of principle going to liberty or personal autonomy has left Roe's central holding a doctrinal remnant. When Dobbs was argued in December, Roberts seemed out of sync with the other conservative justices, as he's been in a number of cases, including one challenging the Affordable Care Act. At the argument session last fall, Roberts seemed to be searching for a way to uphold Mississippi's 50-week ban without completely abandoning the Roe framework. Viability, it seems to me, does not have anything to do with choice. But if it really is an issue about choices, why is 15 weeks not enough time? Robert asked during the argument. The thing is that an issue before us today is 15 weeks. While Alito's draft opinion does not cater much to Roberts' views, portions of it seem intended to address the specific interests of other justices. One passage argues that social attitudes towards out-of-wedlock pregnancies have changed drastically since the 1970s, and that increased demand for adoption makes abortion less necessary. Those points dovetail with issues that Barrett, a Trump appointee and the court's newest member, raised at the December arguments. She suggested laws allowing people to surrender newborn babies on a no-questions-asked basis means carrying a pregnancy to term does not oblige one to engage in child-rearing. Why don't the safe haven laws take care of the problem, asked Barrett, who adopted 2 of her own 7 children. Much of Alito's draft is devoted to arguing the widespread criminalization of abortion during the 19th and early 20th century belies the notion that a right to abortion is implied in the Constitution. The conservative justice attached to his draft a 31-page appendix listing laws passed to criminalize abortion during that period. Alito claims an unbroken tradition of prohibiting abortion on pain and criminal punishment from the earliest days of the common law until 1973. Until the latter part of the 20th century, there was no support in American law for a constitutional right to obtain an abortion. Zero. None. No state constitutional provision recognized such a right, Alito adds. Alito's draft argues that rights protected by the Constitution, but not explicitly mentioned in so-called unenumerated rights, must be strongly rooted in U.S. history and tradition. That form of analysis seems at odds with several of the court's recent decisions, including many of its rulings backing gay rights. That's right, folks. Gay marriage is next. We will go and we'll get that overturned as well. Because marriage is not a right. Liberal justices seem likely to take issue with Alito's assertion in the draft opinion that overturning Roe would not jeopardize the rights the court have grounded in privacy, such as the right to contraception, to engage in private consensual sexual activity, and to marry someone of the same sex. We emphasize that a decision concerns the constitutional right to abortion and no other right, Alito writes. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt precedents that do not concern abortion. Alito's draft opinion rejects the idea that abortion bans reflect the subjugation of women in American society. Women are not without electoral political power, he writes. The percentage of women who register to vote and cast ballots is consistently higher than the percentage of men who do so. And now you know why our country's in such a shape it is. A bunch of women on their periods who want to murder their children are the ones making decisions. So you men need to take your balls out of your wife's purse and start doing something about these things. Anyway. Okay. The Supreme Court remains one of Washington's most secretive institutions, priding itself on protecting the confidentiality of its internal deliberations. At the Supreme Court, those who know don't talk, and those who talk don't know, Ginsburg was fond of saying. The tight-lipped reputation has eroded somewhat in recent decades due to a series of books by law clerks, law professors, and investigative journalists. Some of these authors clearly had access to draft opinions, such as the one obtained by Politico, but their books emerged well after the case in question were resolved. The justices held their final arguments of the current term on Wednesday. The court was set a series of sessions over the next 2 months to release rulings in still unresolved cases, including the Mississippi abortion case. Hey, I'm going to post the link to the draft in the video here. Let me go in the description of the video here, so you guys can go ahead and see that for yourselves if you want to read it. It's 98 pages, but hey, this is it, you guys. I mean, hold on. Where can we go here? Live video. So this was kind of just an impromptu thing. I thought that this was important enough to come on here and just do a do a video on it for you guys so you can hear this. But I want you guys to remember this. So this is the fight is not over because this doesn't do away with it completely. All this does is put it back to the states. And states, like Oklahoma, states like Tennessee and Texas and Mississippi will outlaw abortion and make it criminal. This is true. Other states aren't. So Christians, we have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to go out and do something about this. We have an opportunity to go out and change things for our country. This requires you to go out there and vote. This requires you to go out there and preach and do things and stand up, because if you think that the liberal baby murderers are going to let this stand without a fight, no. They are going to riot in the streets. They are going to burn, loot, and murder people. I'm telling you, watch what's going to happen. Our country is going to be torn to pieces, and it's not going to be Christians. It's not going to be conservatives do it. It's going to be the baby butchers that do it. I mean, after all, they murder children. How can you expect them to act like decent people in a moral society? Well, we're supposed to have a moral society. They can't. They won't, because they're going to be so angry and so fired up that their ability to murder children is finished, at least in a lot of states. And they'll cry and they'll put the spin on it, talking about, oh, women's rights. Well, you know what? If it was your right, you'd be the one getting aborted, not your child, okay? And it's time for us to stop loving the murderer so much, because your love for the murderer, folks, sounds a lot like hatred for the murdered, which is that baby, okay? You have a voice that God gave you, and God expects you to use it. You need to stand in the gap and stand up for people who cannot speak for themselves. And that includes unborn babies, because they can't speak. Because if they could, and we can hear them, I guarantee you, every one of them would say, don't murder me, mommy. This is our time, folks, to stand up against evil. God asks, who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity, against evildoers? You. The answer is you and me and all of us. We are the ones who will stand up to this. We are the ones who will continue speaking for the unborn. We are going to go and we are going to crush the serpent. We're going to crush the head of that snake, because we stand from a point of victory already. And when we're out there, when we're preaching, when we're speaking the truth, regardless of people's feelings, things get done. We were there when they heard the arguments, and we'll be there at the Supreme Court when they announce their decision publicly. But I want you guys to understand where we're at right now. We have an opportunity. Okay, we have a window. Go out there, vote. Go out there, speak up. If you'll speak up for the life of the born child being murdered and not for the unborn, well, then you do not support life. You're not an anti-abortionist. You're not a pro-lifer. You're not an abolitionist. You need to stand up for the unborn babies, okay? Fox News just reported it. And I'm willing to bet that a liberal inside the court somewhere leaked this in the hopes of causing chaos in the streets. And it is. Just like the night Donald Trump got elected, it's going to be great. It's going to be great to see these people cry. Okay? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. Because they can't murder their children anymore. But praise God. I just want to bring that to you guys real quick. Pray and thank God for this. Again, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Okay? This should wake you up, and this should make every single one of us want to go out even more and fight and fight and fight harder. And fighting doesn't mean just posting memes and news articles on Facebook or doing this. It means getting your butts up out the pews, getting your butts out the church things here, and go out and actually start doing it. Carafem, I told you, will be shut down by this year's end. Right? I told you it would be over. They would be finished by the year's over. Carafem would no longer be doing abortions. The Bristol abortion clinic with those nasty people, the Skeens. Okay, their last name is Skeen, and yes, they look exactly like somebody named Skeen. They act like it too. No more abortions. It's over in Tennessee. It's over in Texas. It's over in Oklahoma. It's over in Mississippi, probably Louisiana, Florida. It's finished. You want to kill your babies? Go to California. But we have conservatives there that I'm willing to bet are going to rise up on this. This is going to give them renewed strength and renewed energy to go out there and fight even harder. Kick the Democrats out of office. Get them out. Start having godly people in. Like I said, Roe v. Wade's being overturned. Next one's going to be gay marriage. Gay marriage can be overturned. You can just prove it, okay? That's our next one. Obergefell versus Hodges. That's the next case that we need to take down and put that and get that out. And start getting the rainbow flags out of our schools and start getting the sexualizing our children out of our schools. Stand up, Christians, because you have an opportunity now. Don't squander it and don't let it go to waste. Love you guys. God bless you guys. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow for a teaching video. Love you guys. God bless. Again, I'll see you tomorrow night.
You've been listening to Warriors for Christ. Biblical, bold, truth, uncompromising. We take the Bible literally, teaching and preaching truth without any preconceived ideas. America's leading street ministry, with the goal to wake up the church and to fight back against the wickedness in the world. We hope you've gotten some useful and inspirational information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Till next time, we are Warriors for Christ.